We saw $3.24 billion flow in across US spot exchange traded products. That's the second biggest week we've seen in Bitcoin ETFs history. So that's been a big catalyst, I think, in what's driving us to new all-time highs. This buying activity, it's actual real demand. It's not derivatives or some sort of paper product.
The amount of Bitcoin being created every day is minuscule compared to the amount that these guys are buying on average. MYX actually had a huge crash. It crashed like 70%. Look, it's had a little bit of a recovery today, like up 27%, but there's a lot of speculation around like market manipulation with it, and so thus you're naturally just going to have some distrust.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Tapping Into Crypto podcast. I'm Pav, and with me, Ted.
Hello,
hey,
Pav.
How are ya?
Mate, fantastic, and for a few reasons.
Yeah, go on.
One, Bitcoin's at a new all-time high.
Yeah, on a weekend too.
On a weekend.
Yeah.
Listeners would be very pleased with that.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, our theories are true. Brisbane's the sporting capital of Australia. NRL champions, the Broncos, along with the AFL and the NRLW. What else can we do?
It was a pretty eventful weekend. I think that, honestly, that game of, and we're not going to talk too much about sport, but we've got to get this out of the system because I think that game changed me as a person, I think. That was crazy.
Reece Lightning, absolutely unbelievable performance. Look, it's nice. It's been, 20 odd years since we last won?
Yeah.
So pretty incredible, especially after last weekend as well. So can't really complain from a sporting point of view.
No. And again, the markets are really turning it up. So I think this episode's very fitting that we maybe dive into a pretty key topic, why a lot of people maybe aren't aware that October is actually a very, very important month on Bitcoin's calendar, particularly at this time of year, which we'll get into in a minute, but just hold on to that. We're also going to dive into some top movers, what was moving last week that's not moving this week. There's some pretty interesting trends there as well as some key news that are likely moving markets as well. So again, we've got a pretty action-packed episode, so
yep.
I think we should kick into it.
Well, yeah, I just want to call out the segment at the end about Uptober, why it happens, where like what has happened in previous years, particularly in the post-halving years. So it's really important you stick around because I think it's going to be quite insightful.
It will be.
So top movers. Let's touch on last week first. So last week, I think some of the key ones that we highlighted were MYX Finance and Aster. They were both BNB perpetual decentralized exchanges.
Similar to Hyperliquid. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And both had like really good runs.
Yep.
This week, it's important we update. MYX actually had a huge crash. It crashed like 70% after we talked about it. Not sure if there's any correlation there, but look, it's had a little bit of a recovery today, like up 27%. But there's a lot of speculation around like market manipulation with it, and so thus you're naturally just going to have some distrust. And the same with Aster. Like Aster didn't tank nearly quite as much, but there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty around the project, particularly because DeFi Llama, which is one of like the key, data, what would you call it? Data.
That's like an
aggregators of, on-chain analysis has delisted it because they basically said the trading volume on Aster mirrors the perpetual trading volume of Binance. And, we spoke about how closely linked Binance is with Aster in particular. So they've said, nah, this looks dodgy and we're delisting it. So don't know. What do you make of that?
It's interesting. These things are normal. I feel like we have seen these things happen in the past. Like, obviously, if someone's got a vested interest in a project, they're going to put money towards making it seem successful. I guess this is a key differential in understanding like what makes DeFi so different to something like a centralized exchange, like your Binances, your Bybits. You can't hide a lot of this data. It's all on chain, so everyone can sort of see the validity of what's happening right now. So again, like you spoke about, concerns about wash trading. That's a key thing that you wouldn't normally be able to do, but crypto sort of allows you to track that. So I think it is a bit of FUD. I think at the end of the day, because of who's behind the helm with these projects, not so much MYX, but more so Aster, they'll incentivize people to keep using their platforms, and you probably will see a lot of that. They call it wash trading, maybe just naturally go away. The way they'll do this is through things like airdrops, I feel. But I still think if you're an investor, you want to probably just be a bit careful. Short term, what price could do. Because again, altcoins, they move negative 70% overnight sometimes. So you just got to be super, super careful how much risk you're putting down on these things.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But this week we've got some new ones. What do we want to talk about first? Zcash is an interesting one.
The dinosaur.
Yeah, big time. So Zcash is a privacy coin that actually had its all-time high in like 2016. And it's still, mind you, despite having a great week, up like 100 and something percent, it's still down like 95% from its all-time high in 2016.
Yeah, this is a great example of if you're holding something with a bit too much conviction, what can happen? Like everything will eventually move to some point, but it's still not moving anywhere near its previous prices, right? Like I don't remember how high it got. I feel like it was like 200 and something US bucks at its peak.
Oh no, it got higher than that. But,
did it?
Okay. But what this is based on is Helios's CEO, which is like a Solana infrastructure firm. Hadn't really heard of them before, but obviously, you know, they're a firm that's making a bit of ground. And their CEO said that it would hit $1,000, and he spoke very positively around the project, particularly around the privacy aspects and how it differs to like another privacy project like Monero, which some people might know of. So it's currently at 157. He's called it to hit $1,000.
Interesting.
Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I think the thing to call out with privacy coins is that they were pretty hot back in that cycle around 2017, but then you know, regulation came in around, you know, exchanges listing privacy coins, because the whole thing is you can't track them via a block scanner, like you can with Bitcoin or Ethereum, and so it's it can be quite favorable for, you know, doing illicit activity or, you know, money laundering, things like that. So hence why they've got banned, but still they do serve a purpose, and you still can access them, just not through a lot of these central exchanges, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting. I think a lot of this one might also be the market feeling quite confident behind privacy coins, because even Monero, most recent times, if you have a look at a chart of that, it's gone pretty vertical. So maybe the market's thinking, you know, crypto is becoming more mainstream. There's going to be a bit of a bid back into privacy coins again. Could happen. But exactly what you said, these coins are not really in favor on, you know, many exchanges, because it is kind of part of like the DD process not to allow terrorists and organizations like that go through and get access to a lot of these sort of projects. So it'd be an interesting one to see, I guess, watch keep happening, but it's a long way to go to $1,000. I don't know.
Long way.
Yeah.
What are some other ones? Memecore, that's been in there for so long now. Feels like, you know, every second week it's in the top movers.
Yeah. It's one that's, I think, quite solidly been there. It's probably one not to ignore just for now.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Considering the consistency of it, like some of these ones, if you see, you know, have a huge pump, you know, and they're in there 1 week, but then, you know, they never really, you know, have that sort of time in the limelight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but this one is showing consistency, and that's what you want to see, particularly in a market that's dominated currently by Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's taken that spotlight. But what else? We got Aptos. Aptos is a layer one, and I think we spoke about it a few months ago. It's probably going back like 6 months now. They sort of pivoted their niche to be more focused on RWAs, because a lot of these layer ones are general purpose, but then they figure, well, if we just focus on one particular category, like gaming or AI or, you know, deep end, that can really make, you know, more cut through in the market that is so, you know, sort of competitive, particularly in that layer one market. But yeah, what's happened? So USD1, which is the stablecoin released by World Liberty Financial, so the Trump's project, that's gone live on the network this week. And so obviously just aligns with Aptos's whole notion around RWAs and their focus there, because World Liberty Financial does fall within that sort of narrative and category, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a rhyme there as well with Mantle also making new all-time highs, had a very similar narrative as well, going around that real-world asset use case as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, seems to be some sort of market bid in that space right now.
Big time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we said we were going to cover the news, particularly the news that is impacting why Bitcoin's hit a new all-time high over the weekend. So what do you got for us, Pat?
Yeah, so this is a interesting one. So we've tracked the ETFs, or the exchange-traded funds, on the show for a long, long time, but it's been a very long time. We have seen flows as strong as we've seen last week. So we saw $3.24 billion flow in across US spot exchange traded products. And that's the second biggest week we've seen in the ETF's history. And
Bitcoin ETFs.
In Bitcoin ETFs history. So that's been a big catalyst, I think, in what's driving us to new all-time highs. I mean, this buying activity, it's actual real demand. It's not derivatives or some sort of paper product. So again, we talk about Bitcoin. There's a scarcity. There's only so much in the world. So these guys continuously just buying. It's taking it out of that circulation again. So again, they wrap up. If you're an Aussie listener, they wrap up on Saturdays. And Saturday was the day that we saw the all-time high. So again, it's a good sign, I think, that the market's just showing a really just heavy hand of demand as we're going on. into the end of the year. So now they essentially hold 6.3% of all Bitcoin, which I think is getting quite crazy.
All the ETFs.
All the
not
ETFs.
Just one. Yeah.
No.
Which is ridiculous, right?
Yeah. They only just started in, what was it, January 2024, I want to say.
So like a year and a half.
Year and a half ago, they've already eaten up 6% of the world's Bitcoin supply.
It's massive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the thing to call out there is the amount of Bitcoin being created every day is minuscule compared to the amount that these guys are buying on average, which, from a supply and demand perspective is massive, right? That's what you want to see from, to see price go up.
That's it. And that's why you can kind of look at something like Bitcoin versus a lot of these altcoins. There's always going to be more consistency in its price movement. And we don't see those negative 70% crashes.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why we said we think the market could, continue into 2026, even though, past cycles have shown us that we typically top out around November, December this year.
That's right.
But I guess on the back of this, JP Morgan has updated their Bitcoin prediction for the end of the year.
Yeah, this one got me a bit interested, the timing of it. Yeah. They basically came out, their analysts saying that they expect Bitcoin could reach 165,000 US by the end of this year. That's almost 250K Aussie. So imagine a lot of people who are getting in now, obviously kind of quite like to hear that news, thinking they might be a little bit late to the party. But they're citing that it's undervalued relative to gold. And we've seen gold absolutely rip and tear all of the last 12 months. It's still hitting the all-time high, I think, even today. But the forecast is obviously that this is very much tied into the whole debasement risk, the whole idea that currency is inflating. And we have seen inflation numbers started to tick up. And even a lot of the forward-dated looking inflation metrics, they're pointing to we're going through a period of reinflation, which, in today's modern-day economy, that's normal. So what they're basically saying is if that accelerates, we expect both Bitcoin to accelerate and gold to accelerate. But they're putting their bets firmly on the idea that Bitcoin is probably about to start overtaking the likes of gold, which has already seen a seismic move in the last 12 months.
That probably aligns with what we were saying we did a predictions episode at the start of the year. I think I called 180K US Bitcoin by the end of the year and you called 160.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of smack bang in the middle of that. So
getting pretty close.
And they've also said, have they got like a more bullish case?
A more bullish case? Yeah. I think there was something
they're predicting Bitcoin to go as high as $200,000 US this year. So that would be a bullish case. I think their 165 is more their realistic case, but it's things you like to see when you have a vested interest, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I guess that leads us into our segment around Uptober.
Yeah, I mean,
following September.
Very, very fitting. Obviously, we've heard the two good news stories. We're seeing that the institutional flows are back. They're flowing in a good way. So, Uptober, it's, when you hear Uptober, do you kind of get excited or do you kind of just initially think, look, we'll see? Or how does it make you feel? Do you feel like it's a bit of a meme, overplayed?
No, I don't think it's a meme.
Yeah.
I think looking back at, since 2013, since we've really started tracking, Bitcoin's price performance. So what's that? 13 years. The data shows that only 2 of those years have been red. Sorry, 2 of those Octobers have been red. The rest have all been positive, right? But then we can look even further because what is this year? This year is a post-halving year, right?
Yep.
We had the Bitcoin halving last year, which is a significant event. Now we're in the post-halving year. And what does that tell us?
Well, if you look back at the data again and you basically just look at those post-halving years, so that would be 2013, 2017, 2021, there's never not been double-digit gains for Bitcoin. So 2013, we saw a 53% rise, 2017, 49%, 2021, 40%, and 2025, well, we're already up 9%, and we've only just started the month. So, you can call it what you want. It is definitely a trend you can't ignore. But I think the key story here is it's always just been to this point, very much a Bitcoin-led rally historically. So we haven't seen the likes of, if we look at Ethereum and XRP, just choosing those because they have got the most price history. Something like Solana's only been around since 2021. We've never seen, similar gains across those assets. I mean, Ethereum had 1 year in 2021 where it did increase by 42%, but every other year it's been single-digit gains. So in October, that is. So, as much as obviously everyone's looking at altcoins and alt season and all that sort of jazz, still we haven't really seen that huge move in Bitcoin that usually does set everything else off to follow the following year, which I think is going to be the next year for us, a very altcoin heavily driven year, I'd like to think. But I'd be pretty keen just to see a Bitcoin show take us take us to the next level now.
But if we zoom out and look at Q4 as a whole, as opposed to October, like Q4 is always really strong for Bitcoin in the post-halving year regardless. So, in 2013, it went up 479%. The market topped out in November. 2017, 215% up. Market topped out in December. 2021, it was 5.4% up. For the quarter as a whole. That's because it topped out in November, and then we saw a pretty significant crash after that, right?
Yeah, we did.
So I think like if you go up into that point in November where it topped out an all-time high, it was really strong. But then after that, it corrected pretty heavily. So we didn't see that double-digit gain as we're used to seeing. But look, thus far we're 13% up in the quarter. So in a couple of weeks, or not even a couple of weeks, but it's a good start, right?
It is. And I think the big call out with 2021 versus this year round, I mean, if you look at the way the market moved, the move that we're just starting to see on Bitcoin now kind of happened in 2020 in that previous year. So that breach of all-time highs and starting to make new all-time high prices. This year's been weird because we broke all-time highs before the halving, even if you remember back to 2024. So, I mean, that already was something different that the market hadn't seen before. So, I mean, to me, there was just more demand than we've ever seen in the past for Bitcoin this time around from the market lows. So, yeah, I mean, by all means, it seems like there's still plenty of gas left in the tank, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago when the market did sort of have that healthy correction, and we spoke. I think I spoke that I bought the dip, but there was a lot of fear in the market because all the fundamentals were looking strong, but we had this dip and we couldn't really explain why. But I think what we discussed then is like you got to look at those as opportunities when the majority of the market is, like seeing fear and doubt and all of that. Like you've got to do the inverse of what the majority is doing, right? And so that was an opportunity for us to get in. And I think in general, like you got to look at that from both sides because the market's looking like it's going to be really hot over the next few months. What does that mean? That means, we've always said, when your grandma asks about crypto or the Uber driver starts talking about it, it's like that's when you start to get a bit cautious when things are getting a bit overheated. Like, and that goes back hundreds of years. Like that goes back to the Great Depression when everyone was getting a margin loan to buy stocks, and I think the famous anecdote is the shoe shiner boy who was a so-called stock expert and giving everyone tips. When you start seeing that in the market, and there's no offense to Uber drivers and barbers or anything, but when you start to see everyone sort of making tips and making a lot of money in this market, that's when you start to think, okay, I should do the exact opposite of what the majority is going to do, because what happens? Most people in crypto don't make it. Right?
Exactly. They don't sell. They don't take those profits. Because, you're right. It gets crowded on. Everyone's just too bullish.
Exactly.
And there's only so much money to go around.
So in simple terms, just do the inverse of what the herd is doing. Like, don't have that herd mentality.
Yeah. I think if I had to call it, I reckon next January might start to see some of those relatives reaching out.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
I guess that's us for this week. But we've got a big episode coming next week.
Yeah, next week we do have a special guest joining us. We've got Chris Tipper coming in. He is the chief economist and strategist at Ainsley Wealth. So friends of the show as well, and friends of SwiftX. He hosts many webinars for the VIPs over at Real Vision. So we're really excited to get him in, give you guys some insights on what he's seeing as the next big drivers for the crypto markets and what's coming next for Bitcoin. Really appreciative that he's giving us some of his time to share his insights. I think it's going to be really cool.
No, that'll be a good one. I won't be on that one, but I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cracker. I think the timing couldn't be better, to be honest. I still think there's a lot of people on the fence that just think, should I be selling right now? Yeah,
I think, what does that come from? That comes from, past experience and maybe being overly cautious because of being burned in the past. But,
So be sure to subscribe. The episode will be coming out next week, and I think it's going to be a cracker. But I think that's it for today.
Yes. Thank you, guys. See you next week.